big tech is very comfortable where they are, and they tend to fall on the regulate the hell out of us, regulate me harder, daddy, because they have it's regulatory capture, and they get to exclude all of their competition.
I'm sorry. I need a moment from that one. Yes.
We are the Armed Attorneys. Today we're talking about some hardcore Second Amendment censorship. It's important to know about because, well, we're on the heels of the Olympics. That's all great. Time for celebration, but not for some specific classes of people. We're talking about big tech putting their boot on the throat of people who engage in firearms related activities. And so we have to be talking about this. And should big tech be subject to maybe our common carrier rules? It's related to the Second Amendment. It's really important we talk about this stuff. It's important you talk to your lawmakers, and we're going to be talking about all of this. But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button.
So what we're talking about today is censorship, and the armed attorneys are no stranger to censorship. We've talked about that on our channel before. The YouTube gods don't particularly care for firearm content. They don't particularly care for us. But who are we? We are dancing monkeys with a pistol in our pocket and a law degree on our shoulder. That's it. That's all we are. We don't matter. However, there are people out there who do matter and who are extraordinarily worthy of having their accomplishments fully on view to the general public. It's that time of every 2 years. It's Olympians. And so what we have are actually two Olympians, and y'all have probably heard a little bit about this, who have been heavily censored by big tech, specifically Meta, Google. And so we've got Vincent Hancock, who is a gold medal winner, hit 58 out of 60 birds.
Yeah, Skeet, that's extremely impressive.
58 of 60? Like, I love to clay shoot. If I hit 58 of 60 clays, I would never stop talking about it on any platform.
Yeah.
It would be every single video we made would be about that.
Yeah.
However, right, completely shut down on his socials because it violates their terms and conditions. So not only Vincent Hancock, gold medal winning Olympian for the United States of America, which you would think would be something to be proud of in any circumstance, but we have another Paralympian, McKenna Gear, who has been similarly censored by these platforms, shadow banned actually for posting a picture of the air rifle upon which she qualified for the Paralympics.
Pearls clutched, collapsed.
Pearls clutched.
Well, and you look at, all right, I have some tips. Next time, do something really silly so that you get turned into a meme like the break dancer or like the guy from Turkey, because you can't stop the memes. The memes are flowing.
Nope. Memes are forever.
But I think it raises an important question about how should big tech be regulated, because there's some stress here between, hey, we want government out of the way, we don't want regulation, to, hey, let's regulate the heck out of this industry to kind of achieve the desired outcome. And where we are right now, I would say big tech is very comfortable where they are, and they tend to fall on the regulate the hell out of us, regulate me harder, daddy, because it's regulatory capture, and they get to exclude all of their competition.
I'm sorry. I need a moment from that one. Yes. So, we have this question that Richard very rarely catches me super off guard, and here we are. So, we have this question, I think, initially, which is, do we want more government regulation in any arena? And it comes down to me, I think, generally speaking, in our sort of small potatoes arenas, in our personal lives, smallest potatoes of all, to our small businesses, to our medium-sized businesses, generally not. However, in my mind, there is a gigantic looming exception to that, and that is what we generally refer to in this country as common carriers. You can have common carriers for all sorts of things. We have common carriers which transport the general public. You also have common carriers of services. Think telecommunications companies, where if you are offering your services for hire for the general public, the government is going to regulate you, and the government is going to make sure that you are not price gouging. They're going to make sure that you offer your services fairly. And so, I don't know, Richard, do you agree with me? Do you think some regulation for the big guys is okay, or you think no regulation?
Well, my general kind of my first step is when, and this is just my theory on governing, is does this expand or contract the size of government? And I'll say the way that big tech is, we're not going to snap our fingers and have utopia tomorrow, but the way big tech is being regulated right now, it's not ideal. It's a huge government, and how all this is involved. And so I think a step back, or a logical step back, there's a regulation that I think would be a good fit, and we'll talk about it, that would, I think, shrink the size of government involvement here and have the desired outcomes that we all want, which is just tired of getting censored for, our inalienable right to self-preservation. And then how do we express that? Self-defense, having the best tools available to defend ourselves. And how do we, spread the awareness to this? It's competitions like this.
It absolutely is.
So I think we should start looking, and this is, whenever you hear this, and this is what folks are talking about when they talk about Section 202, and this is our common carrier standard, by which I think this would be a good fix for. I don't think it's a silver bullet. I don't think it's going to fix everything, but it prevents common carriers from discriminating on many, many different bases. I'm going to go through it. It's actually not that long of a law. So this is in Title 47, Section 202 of the Telecommunications Act. And it says, it shall be unlawful for any common carrier to make any unjust or unreasonable discrimination in charges, practices, classifications, regulations, facilities, or services for or in connection with, like communication services, directly or indirectly, by any means or device, or to give any undue or unreasonable preference or advantage to any particular person, class of persons, or locality, or to subject any particular person, class of persons, or locality to any undue or unreasonable prejudice or disadvantage. That seems like that would be good for the Second Amendment.
And it seems like it would fit, because let's think about your cell phone, right? This is our classic common carrier when it comes to telecommunications. Was landlines, Southwestern Bell, now AT&T, T-Mobile. AT&T can't tell me you're not allowed to send text messages about the Second Amendment.
Or, hey, buddy, you want to go shooting? Sorry, you are in timeout for 3 days for the message you just sent.
Yeah. Or, hey, we're not going to offer telephone services to your company, Armed Attorneys LLC.
Yeah.
We don't like you.
Yeah.
Right? They can't do that because, as an individual, I cannot go out and start my own cell phone company. I can't. We're not talking about like Richard and I and Edwin getting a huge falling out and I say, go right to hell, I'm starting a different law firm.
What are all those tin cups and strings in your office for?
What?
For your telephone.
Oh, Jesus. But anyway, I can do that. I can start a competing law firm. I can, give them what's to, but I can't do that to YouTube. I can't do that to my cell phone company. That these giant animals are such that we're stuck with them. And so that is why, again, coming back to, should the government be involved at all? In my mind, that's where the government should be involved, because at some point you have to say, the little guy's not competing, the little guy's not going to make a difference here. Government, you've got to come in and you've got to make sure that they're doing the right thing.
Well, and I think a really fundamental way to even fix that issue, because look, we're taking our steps back to liberty, right? When the government doesn't have the power to pick winners or losers, when they can't influence the market, well, guess what? There's no incentive for these folks to go jump in, lobby, to spend tons of money on these politicians to create this kind of corrupt system that we have now. And so I think working our way towards that goal, I think it would be desirable.
Sure. And so we are living in 47 USC here, assuming that anyone thinks that we're right and that we should be regulating these big tech companies as common carriers. Normally we live in 18 USC, right? Which
Crime.
Is the bad one. This is something where it's just punishable by fines. The government will fine you out of existence for violating 47202, which is, I think, a reasonable stick to impose. But how do we make that happen? What can you do to make that happen? You got to call your lawmaker.
Yeah, and we've been seeing tons of hearings on this in the Congress, and so, I mean, I think we're starting to get to this critical mass of pressure on these companies, especially with, I will say, Elon Musk, X, creating that. I mean, for now, that's a fairly awesome alternative, and it does. I mean, I've seen Facebook back off a little bit on some things because they know, hey, guess what? People are just going to flow to other platforms. But contacting your lawmakers, really, I mean, a lot of people feel like it just goes to some voicemail box that's not being monitored. Sometimes true, but I will tell you, it works.
It works.
When lawmakers get, 10 phone calls about an issue, guess what? They pay attention. And so I think that really is a productive avenue.
It is. And the Republicans in Congress, as you mentioned, they are not unaware of this issue. But ultimately, you got to do what your constituency thinks is important. How do they know that their constituency thinks this is important? Phone calls.
Yeah.
Phone calls. I'll do it.
Yeah, or go visit when they come to town, go to their town hall meeting and bring it up with them in person. That's probably worth 50 phone calls. If you actually go out and meet them in person or set a meeting with them and go talk to them, but it is worth your time. But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And comment about your righteous indignation about big tech. I mean, that's something you can do too, right?
Yeah.
Put your opinion out there. Until next time, we're the Arms Attorneys.